Okay, I'm up for questions and answers. She was, go ahead. You know, we're going to do a microphone just to make sure everybody can hear you.
Will the Olympic Property Group be doing the building of the new homes, or will those be, the land be sold off?
The question is, will Olympic Property Group do the construction? So we will not do the vertical building. We will not build buildings. This building was really unusual for us. And the way it might go is we might get the master plan approved, and then somebody else might just buy the whole thing right then. We get it approved, and somebody comes in and buys the whole thing, and we're out. Or we might stay in it longer and put in the streets and the sewer and the gutters, and then sell finished lots to other builders. So I'm not sure which of those is going to happen. Question, we had a question here.
In terms of the public areas that you talked about earlier, how many, was it 7,000 acres? Is that what you're talking about?
So the question is, how much land and where is the land that we're trying to put in conservation, these public areas? Okay, so it's on the map in back, the dark areas, the Kitsap study area. There are 4,200 acres that attach to Port Gamble. There's about 2,000 acres around Kingston, and about, this is all rough numbers, around another 2,000 acres up in Kingston.
And so you mentioned that you didn't enter into a contract, an option agreement with the conservation group. So I take it that there's a price for that option. So when you say they're trying to raise money, how much money would it cost for them to exercise that option and buy the property?
So the question is, how much is all of this going to cost? If people are going to do it. We have not put a price out because it's going to be appraised. And the appraisal is going on right now, because when the public buys a property, they can't just take our word for it. They have to pay fair market value as determined by an appraisal that's done by a certified appraisal.
So there's a contractual provision that establishes the market price, but that makes it a little vague in terms of if they're trying to raise money, then they don't exactly know at this point how much.
We've given them some brackets, and it's it's tens of millions of dollars. So there's not a real threat that anybody's got that or anywhere close to it. But the appraisal for that is going on right now. So folks trying to raise the money will have that number by the end of summer.
So that's given the short string on the option. You said I think it goes through 2013.
It goes through, the option expires March 28th at 5:01 p.m.
March 28th.
2013.
Yeah, 2013. So it's not a lot of time for us in a year. And so that's why I'm just practical. I'm trying to get some sense of magnitude about sort of where they are and how much money.
Okay, so where they are. And so, yeah, 18 months is not a lot of time, although for us, it'll be 6 years at that point, working on it. But the point of the 18 months is not necessarily to raise all the money. It's to say, have we identified that it's even reasonable to think that we're going to get a fraction of that money? So the point of that is to say, let's try for 18 months to look for sources for funding. And if at the end of 18 months, people are still saying, then why would you keep doing that, is the point. Why would you keep chasing after that? Because for me, it's 6 years of 50% of my time goes towards this project. I personally have to move on. And the company isn't going to support us or Sue or anybody else working on it. So it's a reality check. That's a check-in for reality. Bill Hilton.
On the same lines, I was wondering, do they have a website where they can tell us where they're at in their place?
We have a little postcard in the back that has all the websites that are pertinent. So if you pick up one of those postcards, it says, it's your backyard. There you go. Quick, get them, write them down. That's also on a postcard.
And on their website, do they have their progress?
Is there a website for you who's trying to raise the money?
Yes, that's Judy's group, Kitsap Forest Bay. Raise your hand again, Judy. And so they are the lead local organization that is trying to get this public involved and engaged. Because if you get it to the end of 18 months, you know, I mean, and I'm not the boss of Pope, so I'm just a worker guy. At the end of 18 months, my boss and us will go to our board and we'll say the option's over. And the board will say, tell me, is there any reasons to extend it? Okay, so that's really kind of what we're looking at. So that it doesn't have to be done necessarily, but it's got to be real. And then, you know, logical, so yes, go.
My question is, you say 18 months, but it's really only 10 months from now. If you said March.
It's 10 months from now, yes, because we've already been.
So they've already gone through almost half their time.
Yes.
And they should have some idea of what kind of progress they've made.
It looks like there's some real possibilities on the waterfront pieces, those 20-acre lots in the 2 miles. I think that there's going to be something that happens on those.
But the other is still up in the air.
The other is still up in the air. Thanks.
What is the total density in terms of the number of acres?
So for the question is, what's the total? You know what, let's just do this. I'll repeat the questions because she can't move fast enough. The question is, on the 7,000 acres, how many lots is that? It's, you know, thereabouts. So on the 7,000 acres that's not in town, basically it's 7,000 divided by 20, or about 350 lots that are spread from Hansville to Kingston to above Port Gamble. And in Port Gamble, it is somewhere around 225 new lots, homes, townhomes, whatever they are. Is that, that's in that bracket around there? So it's 2.5, well, the question is what? I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? Who? Somebody asked the question.
I thought the units were 2.5 acres.
No, for every, it's 2.5 homes on every 1 acre. So it's about a third of a lot. In town, it's, so it's been a little confusing for people. In town, it's basically 1/3 acre lots. Outside of town, it's basically 20-acre lots. So these are like city lots inside the town, and then outside the town, it's 20-acre lots.
So townhomes are in relation to people.
The only place that we've thought about townhomes themselves is on the water. So we haven't really, I mean, we may have some in town, we haven't really considered that. We've been thinking more about cottages. If anybody's been to Seabrook, has anybody been out to Seabrook? So they've got cottage, New England style, and everything that we do is going to look New England. Question in the back.
Is the rerouting of 104 a dead letter?
So the question is the rerouting of 104, is it a dead issue? Did I get that right? So back about 10 years ago, the Department of Transportation got several $100,000 to study rerouting 104 around Port Gamble. And the reason they did that is because there's a tremendous amount of growth that's happened in the last 50 years in Squim, in Port Angeles, in Port Ludlow. The bridge is crowded, as everybody knows, and they wanted to take Port Gamble out of the loop. They ran out of money before the study was complete. And so they stopped studying. They looked at ideas of coming up over the hill. They looked at ideas about just going right behind town, kind of like right through here. And they had a couple other sort of schemes that were pretty dramatic, but nobody's studying that right now. When we do our traffic studies, it'll probably show that we need traffic lights in town. So at the full build out, because at some point, you just can't keep adding traffic. You have to get people on and off the highway. There's a good chance there'll be either roundabouts or traffic lights or something. But there's a traffic study that we will do that looks at that. And then I know DOT will ask us about the bypass, this idea of bypassing. And so we'll have a discussion as to whether or not Pope is willing to either sell them land or work with them on finding a bypass. I think for this community, you know, Pope's going to be gone, and this is gone. When we're done with this, we're out. But I think it would be very, very wise for this area, people that live in Squim and everybody else, to make sure DOT works hard to secure that route, because it's something that they're gonna need someday. So, it's not dead in our book, but nobody else is working on it. Bill?
One of the issues that the county should have is where's the future growth of the north area going to come from in terms of population expansion? If you take $7 an acre now, how much raw land is left for expansion of houses?
So, can I clarify? So the question is, if the county's taking 7,000 acres and putting it in a park, how are we going to grow in the future? And so, you know, the only question so that's the question. We're taking land off the tax rolls. That's usually an issue for people. And then B, how are we going to expand in the future? It will have a severe limitation on expanding in the future. Some people love that. Some people hate that. But today, if you look at the county's 20-year plans, they can accommodate 20 years of growth without needing that land. But I don't know what the 100-year plan is. So I think we fall off the table at 100 years. But that's for those guys. That's for some other smarty pantsers.
John, how will the infrastructure be handled for sewage disposal and domestic water?
Okay, so the question is, how will we handle sewer and water? Okay, Pope has water rights and 2 wells in town, and we have enough water rights to do either one of these plans. However, the Kitsap Public Utility District and the state of Washington has a program called the Water System Consolidation. The state doesn't like to have lots of different water system owners. They don't like that. So they have a program of consolidating systems, and our Kitsap PUD was just successful in getting funding to connect Port Gamble and Salisbury to the North End water system. So that's going to be built, and so we won't need those wells necessarily, but we don't need the water. We don't need the water pipe either. Part of their thinking is there's an awful lot of development along the shoreline, and so they worry about someday in the future with salt water intrusion, people's wells going bad, that there'll be public water here and close by within probably 18 months. Sewer. We have a sewer treatment plant. It was built in 1972. We have a permit that we renew every year. It's good for about 100 homes, but we already talked about that we're going to have many more than that. The way we're going to handle that is by pumping sewage effluent up on the hill into a large drain field system. So up on top of the hill, if anybody's dug around, is a giant sand box. Basically, it's a huge mound of sand at the top of the hill. And so it's one of the very few places in Kitsap County where the soils are good enough for that. Almost no other place that I've worked has, but it's literally, if you go down this road, you know the sand pit that's there? So if you go in there and check it out, that's the kind of soils it has, so it's very favorable for that. Most environmental folks are excited about that for 2 reasons. One, it gets an outfall out of Hood Canal, people like that. And number 2, it helps with groundwater recharge, and people like that too.
I didn't quite follow the kind of the thinking pattern. Port Gamble wants to get out of real estate, then why are you considering this development within town to sell? Is this going to be, you're going to sell these lots off privately? Or is it to make it more attractive for a big seller to come in the future?
So the question is, if we're getting out of real estate, why are we getting into real estate? This? That's just crazy enough to, it's just crazy enough to work. Because you have to stay in it longer to get out of it. The town is not saleable in its condition. It's not saleable because nobody's figured out the sewer yet. Nobody's gotten approval through the Kitsap County. It's too early. Nobody wants to take the town with the environmental cleanup being done. And 10 years ago, nobody wanted to buy this town with the homes and the businesses in the condition they were in. So it's been 10 years of chink, 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 getting it ready to go. But by the time we're done, whether somebody buys it all at once, or we're here doing lot by lot by lot, whether that's 5 years or 20 years, Pope will own nothing here. So we'll be out. We've been here for 160 years almost, so 20 years is really fast. Is that? Yes?
If you have 225 home sites, and they're sold individually, and each individual has its own builder, wouldn't we have a hodgepodge of building types of homes that may not match what we have today? Is there going to be a restriction as to what kind of house they can have?
There will be, certainly if Pope's involved. Well, there's two things. So the question is, 225 individual homes, are we going to have a mess up here? Is it going to be a hodgepodge of design? Is the cool place going to be yucky looking? Right? So the first safeguard against that is in our county zoning code. You can pull this up on the website. In that zoning code, you can look, there are many references to historic compatibility. So it doesn't matter if we own it or not, there's a zoning code that says you're not going to put up things that don't fit here. Okay, so that's the law, and you can check that out on Kitsap County's website. Number two, it's highly unlikely that whoever is the developer and that is putting in the streets and getting the lots ready, it's very unlikely that they're going to be doing a one by one by one. It's much more likely that there's going to be a builder or two that we all agree, that the developer and the builder sit down and agree on, this is our house plan, and this is a house plan, and a house plan. Much like Port Ludlow, where it was very controlled, there's CC&Rs that get recorded, there's architectural controls, so it's not likely that that's going to be the outcome. This building here, you know, a lot of folks don't know it's new. If folks haven't come through town before, they don't come back and say, oh, I just went through town, I love your new building. They don't say that. And when we got this built, we had to hire 2 historians. They're not architects, they're historians. Go back in the record and kind of look at the Hotel Puget that was here, and kind of look at the things that are around here. Those ghosts are really angry with that question. Please, sir, don't upset them anymore. And then we hired, so they came up with some ideas about scale and size and slope. They gave those recommendations to an architect who was steeped in historic design. So we went through a lot of process to get this building to look and to fit in. We've heard mostly good comments. I don't think we've heard really any negative comments about the building. Trains leaving.